Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Dr. Sajad Zalzala. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again.
Can you explain to us about the LDN and longevity survey that we're doing and why it is so important that we collect this data?
Yeah, so LDN has been a wonder for a lot of patients across many different symptoms and conditions and things like that. But if you look at the kind of the underlying mechanism for how LDN works across so many different disease categories and things like that, one has to wonder, can LDN also have a role in preventing diseases and therefore potentially as what's called a longevity therapy? So that's kind of what prompted us to do this survey for patients to collect more information on this hypothesis that we have.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of questions do patients have to answer?
Yeah, so the survey we took a long time to design this survey, and the idea of it was to we're hoping to recruit patients who've been on LDN, for a short period of time, for a long period of time. We'd really love people who've been on it for a long period of time, more than 3, 4, 5 years. If they could participate, that would be amazing if we could have as many people as possible who've been on LDN for a long period of time. But the questions that we're asking has to do with what's called quality of life assessment, asking about physical and mental well-being, also immune status. We're also asking questions about general health. What kind of medical conditions patients on LDN face, what kind of diagnosis they've had, what kind of medications they have. And so we've kind of designed the questionnaire to kind of capture, as much useful information as we have as we can without overburdening the participant.
Mm-hmm. And why would you say it's so important that people participate?
Yeah, so in order to understand whether or not LDN can help prevent diseases or slow them down, we need to be able to collect real world data on patients to see whether or not there's any hope that this hypothesis that we have is potentially true. Of course, a survey like this is only the beginning. The hope is that if enough people can answer the survey and we start seeing signals that yes, there's some promise to the data, then we think then that can lead to much broader, it'll open the door to much broader research in the area of evaluating low-dose naltrexone for as potential gerotherapeutic or an anti-aging therapy.
I know a lot of people are cautious, and as they should be, about submitting their personal data. But it is all being collected on jot form. It's HIPAA compliant. It's very secure. And the information that is collected when it is being given to doctors for it to be extrapolated, etc., it's all anonymous. So instead of it being a patient's name, it will be patient number 1, 2, 3, and so on. Addresses, emails are not shared. It's all very secure. All we will be sharing will be a code, which will be the patient number, which will only be relevant to us, not to anybody else. And then it will be just purely the information that they've inputted. It's very secure. There is nothing to worry about. And if anybody has any problems when you get onto the form, there's a link you can click it to ask your questions. But to have as many people as possible, to have a very broad spectrum, so we can have, ideally, we would like 2,000 people taking part.
or more.
or more.
Or
Yes, I
more.
mean,
And I know there's tens of thousands of people out there, potentially more than 100,000 people on LDN. So we just need to capture, 10%,
yeah,
10%,
exactly.
20% of people. So it's I know it's the survey has a lot of questions, but the information I think we'll gather will be very valuable. And to your point about security and privacy, I mean, we take that very, very seriously. We're being monitored by what's called an IRB, an institutional review board. And they kind of they're overseeing this survey to make sure that we're following all the proper practices when it comes to privacy, security, and making sure that we're not unnecessarily sharing any information.
Hmm. And to have this survey approved is also reassuring for people as well. That it's not just some random survey. Now, the survey, as you said, is quite long.
Manageable. I mean, I've taken it myself. Anywhere between 3 minutes if somebody goes through it pretty quickly, up to maybe 10 minutes. Maybe a little bit longer if somebody wants to take their time and provide more details. But I think the average person should be able to get through in about 5 minutes. So it's not, like I said, we've tried to design it to collect enough useful information to publish, because that's our hope. We're hoping to actually publish this in the peer-reviewed literature in journals, in a journal, for other researchers and scientists and clinicians to benefit from.
Nothing is stored. We don't have any records of anything until somebody presses submit. So it's very important when you've gone through the form, not just to click off it, to make sure you click submit. Nothing is saved until it's been submitted. So it's very important that people remember to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, every data point for us is very valuable, I think. And the more and more we get, the more valuable this study will be for the community at large. I mean, what actually, to step back a little bit, what prompted this was a observation that I made, because I've been prescribing LDN for years. Many patients I have an LDN, and I kept hearing kind of a common theme among some patients. They would take LDN for one reason, and then all of a sudden they start getting secondary benefits to it. Doesn't always happen, but it has happened enough times for me to say maybe there's something here about LDN where it can actually be used as more of a preventative agent rather than just for specific symptoms. And what I was hearing from patients is they would take it for let's say, for example, fibromyalgia symptoms. So LDN has been studied in trials, and it seems to be one of the most promising therapies when it comes to fibromyalgia symptoms. But when patients would take it for one reason, let's say fibromyalgia, they would come back and say, hey, I didn't get that usual sinus infection or that bronchitis, or if they had asthma, they don't have to use their inhaler as much. So that kind of indicated to me that there was something else going on with the LDN, where it was reducing inflammation and and balancing the immune system. And I don't want to go into too much detail because we have a webinar coming up, and I'll go into detail in terms of mechanism of actions and the hallmarks of aging and things like that. But it suffices to say that there's enough promise in my mind that LDN will really shine as a potential preventative agent to help slow down the aging process.
But one question that people ask is, how safe is LDN to take long term? Because you're talking about taking it indefinitely for maybe people that don't currently have any issues, but to stop them from getting things that they might likely get with age.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Mhm.
yeah, that's a very good question. It's obviously there are lifestyle choices and things like that people can do to help them live longer and healthier. Have a good balanced diet, physical activity, socialization, et cetera, et cetera. And those are all great things that I encourage patients to do. But it's becoming more and more apparent that you need all the help you can get, so to speak. So there are several molecules. Some of them are drugs like naltrexone. Some of them are natural therapies, like fisetin and the like, that seem to help alter the aging process and slow it down. And so any of these molecules that we find that have promise, like it's going to we think it's going to have to be like an all hands on deck sort of thing where people need all the help that they can get to kind of fight back against aging. And so more and more people are realizing that it would take being on certain, whether it's medications or other molecules or other therapies long term in order to kind of shift the Titanic away from the iceberg, so to speak. And so yes, if LDN turns out to be one of those promising molecules, then there shouldn't be any reason to fear being on it long term. In fact, it should be encouraged.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been taking LDN 20 years and I haven't had any adverse effects. And I know there are people that have been taking it a lot longer than I have. But if you are a young person taking it, I mean, say in your 20s, and they want to take it for longevity, there is no reason why they can't continue taking that till they're, 80, 90, however long their lifespan is. I mean, it is not a drug that accumulates in the body or has any detrimental effect by taking it indefinitely, is there?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of. And, in fact, I use kind of these stories from other patients, where people report these other, a lot of medications have side effects. LDN seems to have a lot of side benefits that I spoke to earlier, not having that cold or, and things like that. So just given the fact that, there doesn't seem to be any long-term side effects with it. And in fact, there seems to be, long-term side benefits. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be recommending patients take it for longer term. Although there's kind of one question that we're eventually going to have to answer as a community is, when is the optimal time to start these therapies? Is it in your 20s? Is it in your 30s? Is it in your 60s? And that's kind of work that's still being worked out. My opinion is it really depends on the therapy and the reasons for taking it. Take metformin, and I'm going to kind of go off a tangent here a little bit. So metformin is probably one of the most promising potential longevity therapies out there. But if somebody is, in their 20s or 30s, perfectly healthy, no metabolic issues, no concerns for insulin resistance or family history of diabetes, I probably wouldn't recommend a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old start on metformin. I think at that point, you'd be taking something probably too soon. However, once somebody gets into their 50s and 60s, it's a different story. Almost everybody by that time starts having issues with insulin resistance and metabolic issues. And that's kind of where therapy like starting metformin and staying on it for a long term helps. So when it comes to something like LDN, what we need to do after, hopefully once the survey is finished and we find some good data in there, then that can help prompt more research to figure out what exactly is it doing. We have some ideas of what it's doing, and I'll talk about this on the webinar, the PowerPoint slides and things like that. But more importantly, like who's the ideal candidate for it, or who are the candidates for it? And that probably will require maybe checking, let's say, immunity markers, inflammatory markers, and things like that, and maybe being a little bit more selective when it comes to people who don't otherwise have symptoms. So I know there's a complicated answer. I'm not sure if it answered your question or caused more questions to be generated.
Well, I think what we really need at this point is as many people taking part, and please stick with it. Don't give up. Get to the end, click submit. And if we can reach 2,000 plus people, there should be enough data there to be able to prove certain markers.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's I can't tell you how much I appreciate everybody who would go, complete the survey and provide their data to us. Um, you know, a lot of patients, they participate in these sorts of surveys and initiatives that I've done before, and they come back and they say, I'm so glad to be been a part of this, and I think that's invaluable. Even though we don't provide any monetary benefit for participating in the survey, I think the fact that somebody knows that they've provided their input for a greater good, I think that's worth a lot more than any monetary value, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yes, to know that you're part of the movement to do this,
Exactly.
Contributing it's amazing. Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to your survey, your webinar. So the webinar is in April. It's the first Tuesday of the month. I can't remember the date, but if everybody would like to sign up for that, it will be released in about 3 weeks' time, that you can register to join us. And Dr. Sajad will be more than happy to answer all your questions. I know you will. Wonderful.
Yeah, bring your thinking caps on, because I have a lot to go over on my presentation. A lot of interesting science. Some of it hasn't really been talked about before. I mean, that's the other thing about LDN. It's kind of a hidden gem, in my opinion. When I talk to other longevity physicians, they're not aware of it. So this is our opportunity to make the longevity community aware of LDN as a potential geriatric. Put it on the list. Put it on the list with metformin. Put it on the list with rapamycin. I think there's definitely potential for LDN to even beat some of these other ones that be more potent, or beat some of these other ones that are talked about.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.